Good morning, everyone. Today we'll begin by unpacking what we mean by a disaster. A disaster is more than just a bad event. It's a situation that overwhelms a community's capacity to cope using its own resources. It could result from nature's force, human action, or sometimes a mix of both. When a community faces something extraordinary, an earthquake, a chemical spill, or a major disease outbreak, and local systems can no longer manage the impact, that's when an emergency becomes a disaster. Let's look at what defines a disaster. An event qualifies as a disaster when it's extraordinary in scale or impact. It originates from natural or human-made causes. It severely affects vulnerable groups, often those already facing inequality or poor infrastructure. It disrupts normal community functioning, damaging systems like healthcare, transport, and governance. And most importantly, it exceeds local coping capacity, forcing reliance on external assistance. Think about how a heavy rainfall might just be inconvenient in one country, but completely devastate another with weak drainage and housing systems. That difference lies in capacity. Disasters also differ in scope, intensity, and duration. Scope tells us how widely a community or region is affected. Is it one town or an entire country? Intensity measures the degree of harm, not only in casualties but in emotional trauma and long-term disruption. Duration describes how long the effects persist. Some disasters, like flash floods, are brief. Others, like droughts or protracted conflicts, can last for years. These dimensions help planners estimate what kind of help is needed: local, national, or even international. We usually classify disasters into three main categories: natural disasters and caused by natural forces such as storms, earthquakes, or drought; human-made disasters resulting from human actions, negligence, or failure of technology; mass trauma incidents, large-scale events that cause widespread injury or psychological harm, such as wars or epidemics. This classification helps determine which sectors need to respond first. For instance, engineers in earthquakes or epidemiologists in disease outbreaks. Natural disasters arise from environmental processes, not human fault. Common examples include tropical cyclones and hurricanes that batter coastal cities, flash floods that destroy farmlands, wildfires that threaten both lives and biodiversity, earthquakes that flatten infrastructure within seconds, droughts that silently erode livelihoods and trigger migration. Each of these events interacts with social vulnerability. A well-planned city might recover quickly from a storm, but a low-income rural area could take years. Now, let's shift to human-made disasters, those caused by deliberate or accidental human action. Examples include industrial accidents like chemical leaks or factory explosions, transport crashes involving hazardous materials, acts of violence such as terrorist bombings or mass shootings, oil spills that devastate marine ecosystems, nuclear or laboratory accidents that release radiation or pathogens. A good example is the Beirut port explosion in 2020. A single safety lapse led to mass casualties, economic collapse, and long-term trauma. Looking back helps us understand patterns of risk and resilience. Some key historical events include the Black Death in the 14th century, one of humanity's deadliest pandemics, wiping out nearly a third of Europe's population; the 1918 influenza pandemic, which spread globally due to wartime mobility and killed tens of millions; the Chernobyl nuclear disaster in 1986, which showed how technological errors can have transnational health and environmental consequences; the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, which hit 14 countries and spurred major reform in early warning systems. Each event reshaped public health, policy, and international cooperation. Mass trauma refers to events causing widespread psychological, social, and physical suffering. These include disease outbreaks, such as COVID-19 or Ebola, which disrupt economies and mental health, conflict and civil unrest, which displace communities and destabilize governance, collective violence, often magnified by social media and political tension. Mass trauma is not only about numbers, it's about collective loss, identity disruption, and long-term social recovery. It's important to distinguish an emergency from a disaster. An emergency can be managed with local resources, like a small fire or localized flood. A disaster overwhelms those resources, causing major social and economic breakdown. For example, a city hospital might handle a road accident emergency, but not a citywide chemical explosion disaster. Recognizing this distinction guides how we mobilize resources and external support. Emergencies often share certain features: limited resources, both human and financial, confusion about roles and priorities, poor coordination among agencies, misinformation and rumor spread, high anxiety, sometimes worsened by intense media attention. Managing these dynamics requires strong leadership, clear communication, and preparedness training, even before an event occurs. The economic toll of disasters is staggering. Global losses often exceed $500 billion annually. Disasters damage infrastructure, roads, bridges, power lines. Agriculture and industry, cutting off income and food security. Public services such as schools and hospitals. Low-income countries suffer disproportionately, not because disasters hit them harder, but because recovery systems are weaker and resources scarce. South Sudan illustrates how vulnerability compounds disaster risk. The country faces both conflict-related and natural crises. Civil war and violence, ongoing since 2013, leading to displacement, hunger, and collapse of social services. Famine. Millions face food insecurity each year, exacerbated by conflict and climate shocks. Floods. For instance, the 2020 floods displaced over 1 million people, destroying farmland and increasing disease outbreaks. Disasters here don't happen in isolation. They reinforce each other, creating a continuous cycle of humanitarian need. Finally, we arrive at what we call complex humanitarian crises, situations where conflict, famine, disease, and environmental disasters intersect. Key challenges include mass displacement and refugee flows, breakdown of infrastructure and governance, human rights abuses, and lack of access to aid. Addressing these crises requires both immediate response and long-term peace building. Strengthening disaster preparedness, resilience, and equitable development is the only sustainable path forward. To conclude, disasters are not simply natural or accidental. They are deeply shaped by human choices, governance, and inequality. Understanding their causes, classifications, and impacts equips us not only to respond better, but also to prevent future suffering. Preparedness, coordination, and compassion are as crucial as technology in reducing the toll of disasters.